Excited to welcome Patricia Klinger. Patricia of Say It and Show It will be explaining the 3 P's of public speaking: preparation, presentation, and presence. And I don't know about you guys, but I've always could use a little brushing up on my public speaking skills, whether it's in front of an audience or one-on-one with a colleague. In this 45-minute to an hour webinar will be an interactive discussion on the core of public speaking fundamentals. So I'm pretty excited to get started, but before we get started, I'd like to just take a moment and review a couple housekeeping items. First, if you have questions, please feel free to submit your questions anytime. Simply type them into the box on the left side of your screen. If you're viewing along with others in your office, please designate a scribe to submit your group's questions. Also, if you experience any technical difficulties, on the left side of your screen, you're going to see a link to the GoToWebinar's troubleshooting website, as well as a toll-free number to call and listen to the webinar over the phone. Please use them if you're having any trouble hearing the audio presentation. Also note, to resolve a problem of the slides not advancing automatically, please try exiting and re-entering the webinar. Also, I did want to let you know the webinar is being live recorded, and the online archive will be available next week after the live version on our YouTube channel at BBB News for You, and that's BBB News, the number 4, and the letter U. And finally, we'll be live tweeting during this webinar, so if you'd like to join in the conversation, tweet at #BBBwebinar or follow us at BBB News for You. Once again, that is BBB News, the number 4, and the letter U. And at this time, I'd love to turn it over to Patricia to get us started.
Great.
Patricia, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Good morning, everyone. And thank you again, Shauna, for inviting me to present this webinar today. I am so excited to be here because I'm excited for you more than for me, because of what you're going to walk away with at the end. I recognize that some of you might have some anxiety or fear when you speak publicly. Others of you perhaps have done it comfortably enough on stage and are just wanting to refine your current skill level. And then there are those of you who have yet to speak publicly, maybe because the opportunities haven't presented themselves or your fear continues to hold you back. I want you to know that I completely understand that, but I'm also here to tell you that that fear can be overcome, and if your desire is to be able to get up and address an audience, that what I present today puts you on the path to that happening. So my hope and my desire for all of you is that by the time we are finished this morning, you are going to feel better prepared whenever there is an opportunity for you to address an audience, and to do so feeling very confidently and comfortably. Now, to get started, let's just all take a couple of deep breaths to get settled in, and I will take the lead on that. So let's breathe in and out. And once again, in and out. Okay, now good. That is something, by the way, that you can do when you are waiting in the wings to be called on stage. As much deep breathing as you can do to bring your nerves down is going to serve you well once you're in front of your audience. And I'd also ask you, if you haven't done this already, to gather any materials that you might need, whether it's an electronic tablet, paper tablet, whatever you might want to capture the notes that are going to be important to you, perhaps a glass of water. I know I've got mine safely at hand. And lastly, everybody, just put a big old smile on your face. And if you're asking me or thinking, why would I do that? My answer is just because. When you are presenting to an audience, the more lighthearted you feel about your presentation, the more that's going to be reflected to the audience. So if you have a smile on your face when you enter the stage, then that persona is going to be conveyed throughout the total of your presentation. Even if you're just sitting there at your computer, put a smile on your face, because it is a good day. We're all here, and we're all good to go at this moment. Now, my presentation today is titled Public Speaking Fundamentals, What to Say and How to Say It. Now, that topic can cover a lot of ground, so I am sharing with you some of what I feel are the more important pieces to consider. Speaking of ground, the photo that you're looking at is one that I took at Laie Point, which is just south of the North Shore on the island of Oahu, which is where I grew up. Some of the pictures that you see or the rest of the pictures that you will see on the slides are from a high school reunion that my husband and I attended on the big island of Oahu. And I don't know about those of you and where you're located, what your spring has been like, but here in Seattle, Mother Nature teased us with a hint of summer, and now she's taken us back to the reality of what spring is like. So I thought, let's just all go to Hawaii for the next hour and call it a day. A little bit about me. I was labeled shy as a child, which meant that I then took that on as the way it was supposed to be. I gave myself permission to not talk. I took full advantage of that label. It also meant that I wasn't very social, and here's where the small violins can play. I never dated in high school, never ever went to a prom. However, I realized when I got to college that there was an inner voice that I had been stifling all these years, and I decided that now was the time for it to come out. I made a very conscious effort to drop the shy label and to do whatever I could to be more verbal and to express myself in ways that I hadn't previously, which got me involved in student government, and that was from my sophomore, junior, all through to my senior year, which is culminated in me being student body president. I graduated with a degree in marketing and began a career in advertising sales for a small publishing company in Honolulu, and found that I wasn't completely over my shyness the way that I thought. For those of you who are in sales and absolutely love it, I bow down to you. Sales still continues to be a little bit of a hitch for me. I've gotten better over the years, but back then I struggled, and I struggled a lot, and it was very stressful for me. However, I persevered because I knew that there was so much for me to learn in the way of self-development, and grew to be somewhat successful enough for me to feel that I took advantage of my shyness and turned it into something that was much more positive. After a number of years, I decided to make the segue into corporate training, got my master's in human resources, and for 10 years I was training manager for 2 healthcare organizations. At one point I decided that I wanted to go off on my own. I got my certificate as a personal coach. For 9 years I did stress management coaching for women, and last year I decided to segue to what I am doing now, which is public speaking, coaching, and consulting. And that's where my true passion is because of my particular background. So that's what I want you to know about me. The motorcycle, that's a prop. My husband is the one who actually was the one driving it. I was a passenger all the way. But it's a little bit of the risk taker in me that I enjoy. Now, what I want us to do is look at the true purpose, though, for public speaking, because it is more than simply getting on stage and opening your mouth. When you have a purpose for your speaking, that adds to the allure of your message, and it makes it more special because you have designed your presentation around that particular purpose or purposes. What you're seeing here are the purposes that Dale Carnegie formulated with the work that he did around promoting public speaking as a way for individuals to learn how to self-express. You probably are familiar with Dale Carnegie, noted lecturer, author of How to Win Friends and Influence People, which continues to be a bestseller all these decades later. He formulated these 4 purposes that give you the why when you are on stage. Being on stage is the mechanics of public speaking. The purpose is the why. First purpose to consider is to educate your audience, and that is to teach them something new, to help them understand a concept, how to do something. If your purpose is to inform, then you are likely providing data or information that is imperative for your audience to know, or that they want to know, and they have come to you as the resource to provide that. If your purpose is to inspire your audience, then they are there because they want you to touch their heart. And that is your express purpose as well, to touch their hearts, to motivate them, to encourage them to perhaps reach their higher potential, to understand from the mistakes that you made and how you turned them around into more positive lessons. That's the whole idea of presenting with the purpose of inspiring. And lastly, a purpose to persuade your audience, whereby you want them to take a specific course of action, whether it is to purchase your product or your service, to agree with your opinions or your beliefs, but you are persuading them to see your side of the picture. Each of these purposes you may use one of or in combination to convey the message that you have determined is what you want your audience to know. But knowing your purpose allows you to then design a presentation that is going to be more in sync with your ultimate goal. So I want to stop now. I'm early on in the presentation, but I want to make sure that you're clear on these purposes. So are there any questions that any of you might have around establishing the purpose for your speech or presentation? Let's wait to see if there's any responses.
I'm not seeing any questions at this time, but again, they can type in their questions at any time.
Okay, so that's the first piece I wanted to cover, and that is the purpose of public speaking, so that you clearly understand that there are these elements that can cement your message in a way that might not happen if the thought was, I'm just going to get on stage and talk. Now we look at the preparation of your presentation. And what you're looking at here is one of the famous black sand beaches on the island, the big island of Hawaii. And the sand was created by lava rock that eroded into sand over time. A lot of the tourists who visit the big island feel that it would be very cool to take samples of this black sand back home and display it. So as they're preparing their return trip home, they will get to the beach and have their Ziploc bag and fill it up with black sand. That's their preparation for their return home, without knowing that there is a Hawaiian superstition that if you take this sand away from the sacred ground, that negative circumstances will then befall upon you wherever it is that you take this sacred land away from where it was intended to be. The local newspapers have stories about people who write about businesses that fail and divorces that happen, all because of the superstition around removing black sand. That is my way of segueing into the importance of being familiar with the three pieces that I'm showing here as part of the preparation of your presentation, so that you don't end up with anything negative happening, so that you know what you're doing and why you're doing it as you prepare not only your words, but the whole semblance of your presentation or your speech. So these are three key pieces for you to become familiar with and to understand their significance in preparing for what you will say. And the first is to know your audience. Certainly this can come about through the demographics of your audience, knowing the gender mix, the age span, perhaps their business and career experience, and much of this information you can get from the person who asked you to make the presentation, to get the presentation. You can also survey the audience in advance if you happen to have their contact information. But whatever it is that you can know about your audience in terms of demographics is going to be helpful to you, because it'll help you to couch your words in a way that will be relatable. You also want to know what they need or want and why it is that they are coming to you. What are they going to need as they listen to you, and when they walk away, what do they want to know that perhaps they are less familiar with, and you're the expert, so you are the resource that they are accessing. In addition, you also want to know what you know that they need or want, and that could just be based on your experience with similar audiences, with prep work that you've done that has given you the information about the demographics. And sometimes audiences don't know your topic well enough to understand what they don't know, and you're the one who knows exactly what you would be servicing them well in terms of giving them information that they perhaps are unaware of. So that's why it's important for you to also know your topic, because you are the expert. You know the specifics of what you have to offer. You know the relevant information that you want to share. You know how to hone it down so that your audience won't be overwhelmed by all it is that you know. So the more that you know about your topic and how to winnow it in a way that is going to satisfy your purpose and give your audience what they need or they want, and what you know they need or they want, is going to aid you in preparing in a way that is going to be much more solid. In terms of outlining your topic, I'm not going to be discussing a lot about the how to put together a presentation in terms of the writing piece of it, other than to reiterate what you already likely know, and that is that you do want an opening that is going to help your audience know what it is that you are going to be discussing. You want a body that is going to highlight those pieces, and perhaps you're familiar with the rule of 3, and that is that our minds can only hold on to so much information in a given space of time. And if you were to offer 3 key points, that's about as much as your audience would be able to then walk away and act on, because they're not feeling overwhelmed by a list of 10 or 12 or more pieces of information. So your body, you can hone it by working with those 3 pieces of information that are of most importance. And then your close, you always want your close to tie back to your opening. So however it is that you opened your presentation, if you can wrap up with a conclusion that takes the audience back to the beginning, it brings them full circle and just makes for a more complete picture of your message. Now, I would not be a life coach if I did not add know yourself as part of the preparation. And the importance of doing that is to be clear with yourself about how truly prepared you feel to make a presentation. I would not want anyone to ever be on stage feeling that they were coerced into this, feeling totally unprepared, feeling a bit unsettled. So my suggestion is to you is to consider your speaking history when you are taking advantage of a public speaking opportunity. How often have you been on stage before? What do you enjoy about public speaking? Is it the writing of the message? Is it responding to Q&A? Is it telling stories? Because those are the pieces that you can then highlight. What stresses might you have? Knowing that you could be on stage and feel a little unnerved helps you to prepare to overcome that before that, in fact, does happen. Sometimes I've worked with clients who are afraid that they're going to forget something. So the clue to that, the hint that I give them is to just practice more. Practice enough so that when you are on stage, you know that you understand what your message is and how you're going to convey that. So know yourself in terms of what you enjoy about public speaking, what unnerves you, what's unsettling, what your speaking history is, will help you to prepare appropriately so that when you're on stage in front of your audience, that's not the issue that you're trying to deal with in the moment. So know yourself, how to calm yourself down prior to getting on stage if your nerves are getting the best of you, what to do on stage if an audience member says something that is particularly stressful or borders on heckling. How are you going to react to that? Preparing in advance for those particular, hopefully those likelihoods won't happen, but just preparing in the event that they do by knowing yourself as the person that you are. So for me, that's the part of preparation that I like to highlight, and that is to know your audience, what they need, what they want, know your topic, and base your presentation on the 3 key pieces that your audience should or would want to know, and then knowing yourself and how best you physically and mentally can prepare for being on stage. So let's leave the black sands of the Big Island and continue on down the coast to Kauai Point, which is the southernmost tip of the Big Island, which is also the southernmost tip of the entire United States. It's also reported that this is where the first Polynesians landed. So I want you to notice the irregularity of the coastline, which has been worn away by centuries of volcanic and wave action. And as you look at it, notice that despite the irregularities, this is Mother Nature at her finest. This is beauty personified as Mother Nature has defined it. And the reason I show this photo is because I want to encourage you that when you are presenting, to keep it natural, just as this coastline is. To keep it natural as opposed to trying to turn yourself into someone that you are not. You are not Tony Robbins. You are not Martin Luther King Jr. You are you. And that's the person that we want to see on stage. If someone had come along and decided that they were going to shave the edge of this coastline so that it would be pristine and clean edge, then that would totally destroy the natural effects that Mother Nature provided. And that is why I'm encouraging you to bring yourself as you are in whatever way you choose to refine it without defacing your natural personality. You are bringing all of your experiences, the good and the bad, all of your knowledge. You're bringing all of that to the presentation for the benefit of your audience. So as you are presenting your natural self, speaking to your audience, I have several tips for you. The first is to memorize. And what I mean by that is to memorize your opening and your close. At the very least, if you feel that you're going to be a little unnerved and you might forget what you want to say, at least memorize your opening, because those are the first words to come out of your mouth. And if you know exactly what you're going to say, internally you will feel more relaxed because the words are just coming out. You know what you've planned to come after that, but at least this is coming out very smooth and you've made that connection with your audience. When you get to the body, then that's where you will have a bit more fluidity, but you know that you have memorized the opening, and then your body will happen in the way that it does, and then you've got your close that you can segue into, and use it as you have perhaps memorized it so that it just, as I said earlier, it completes the picture. And I'm going to be a complete hypocrite and turn around and say, don't memorize. And what I mean by that is don't memorize the bulk of your speech. Do not memorize the body. That's why I used the word fluidity earlier, because that's the way that you want your audience to hear it. It just rolls off your lips as if you were making it up in the moment. If you memorize it, it's going to sound stilted. It won't connect with your audience in the way that says, hey, let's have a conversation. I'm up here doing the talking, but we're still having a conversation because you're listening to me. So be careful to not memorize a full presentation because of that very fact that you could then disconnect from your audience. One way to get past the urge to memorize is to use notes. And this is whether you are standing in front of an audience without any impediment, that is, without having a lectern or a podium, and they see your notes. There's nothing wrong with having note cards in your hand to remind you to say this one and say it, and to say that following. You certainly can do the same when you are behind a lectern. When you are using notes, you don't want to have the full script still, because it's just the same as memorizing it. You just want the bullet points that remind you, I know my material well enough, I know my topic well enough, that I just need one or two words to be the trigger to remind me of all the rest that I know to say. At least this will keep you on board with the order in which you want to present your material, and knowing that you're going to fill in the blanks with what's going to come to mind naturally because you have practiced it, plus you know your material well enough that you may even speak off topic, not off topic, but you won't necessarily stick to what it is that you said that you were going to say, that you planned to say, because in the moment you realize this is just as important, so I'm going to say it. And that's the benefit of not having a full script, because then your audience would lose out on that additional information that perhaps is even more important than what you had planned to say. As mentioned before, you have the purpose for being on stage, and it's not solely about getting up there and opening your mouth, but that is a crucial part. You're not going to get up on stage and just stand there mute. You are going to use your voice to promote your message. There are some key pieces of the voice that I would like you to make note of. The first is your tone. You want a tone that is pleasant sounding, that's easy to listen to, that's comfortable for you, in which case, again, it is natural. Trying to imitate some other speaker is just not going to work. It will not work. Use your natural tone that is going to show the audience and present to the audience the person that you are without it sounding that you are trying to be someone else. So to make that happen, one of the things that you'll want to do with your voice is to make sure that you're varying the volume. You don't want your speech, your presentation to be all monotone, all at the same level. So there are moments, perhaps when you're taking your audience to a very special place, where you bring your voice down and say something to them about how difficult it was at that period of your life, so that they can go there with you to feel the dark moment that it was for you. And then you can bring your voice up when you talk about what it was like when you finally had that aha moment and you realized that you had more opportunity than you were giving yourself, so the darkness was gone. So that's the kind of variance in your volume that will help to convey your message in the way that you intend it to be heard. Imagine if Martin Luther King Jr. with his "I Have a Dream" speech has said, and so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Boring. And we know that that's not how he spoke. He was one of the greatest orators of our time. Again, my point is not that you be like him, but that you use your natural abilities to vary the volume in a way that is going to give your words their just due by having the highs and the lows that are going to emphasize your point. Another high and low of the voice that you can use to your advantage is your pitch. You want to make sure that, again, this is very natural and that you're not going too much one way or the other to the point where you're just bringing your pitch up so that it's very, very squeaky, in which case your audience is going to be irritated, or you use your pitch at a lower level and you're having this very baritone-like voice, which for me sounds and feels very awkward because that is not my natural pitch. So you want to use high versus low to your advantage, but still in a very natural way. If you're talking about excitement, then you can bring up the volume as well as the pitch of your voice, and you can see that my voice has taken on a little lighter tone because I'm just so excited about what I have to say to you. And then I might bring it down because I'm telling you about how our business has taken a bit of a slump, and I'm not quite sure how long it's going to take for us to turn around. So my pitch has taken on that lower quality because I want to reflect the disappointment that I am feeling. Rate of speech is equally as important as the words, the number of words that you have in your presentation. The rate of speech is the number of words that you speak per second. If you are speaking too fast, then your audience can't keep up with you. They're having to dodge in and out of the words to try to find out what they should be saying to and giving the most attention to, because it's getting clouded over by all these other words that are on top of them. So if I was talking so fast and I told you, now you have to remember that the number of words that you speak per second is very important to your audience, because otherwise then they're trying to hear too much and you just don't have the opportunity for them to settle down and really take note of what's important. That's very exhausting for you as a speaker, as it is for your audience. You also don't want to talk too slow, because when you do that, it says to your audience that you are perhaps hesitating because you're not sure what you want to say. Plus, it will put them to sleep. So you want to find the balance in your rate of speech that's going to be appropriate to what it is that you're saying, so that it's not too fast and your audience is playing catch-up, and it's not too slow that they are all nodding off on you. One of the better ways to manage the rate of your speech is to use pauses. I did not say at the outset with my bio, I've been a member of Toastmasters, which most of you might know is a public speaking organization. I've been a member for 8 years. 3 years ago, yes, I finally got my DTM, which is Distinguished Toastmaster, which is an award, the top award that you can get for accomplishing a number of goals. So number one issue that a lot of members that join clubs have is with ums and ahs, the filler words that they use, because they're stumbling around to figure out what to say, and they're either talking too slow and they don't want to fill the void because they don't know what they're going to say, so they say or they're talking too fast, so that as fast as they're talking they say an because they're just stumbling over their own words. Pauses are your friends. We hesitate to use pauses because we're afraid that the audience is going to be uncomfortable with silence. I just took a pause, and I don't think that any of you were very uncomfortable with that because it wasn't forever. As a speaker, sometimes you feel that so much time has elapsed that you've lost the audience. But when you pause, it gives you time to think about what you're going to say next without filling it with a word that's not a word, because I don't know that or are in the dictionary. Perhaps they are. But they don't add to your message. They actually detract from your message. Take advantage of the opportunity to pause. Gather your thoughts. Know what you're going to say, and then say it, as opposed to using the rate of speech to try to fill in for what's not there. The pitch and volume and rate of speech are all components that you want to take into consideration as you are presenting your best and your natural voice to your audience. Now, unlike me, which in this case I'm relying totally on my voice, likely your presentations are going to have you in front of an audience so that they can see you, the person that you are. That is why it is important for you to also use your body and the gestures that come naturally to you as part of your presentation. Unless your presentation is very, very somber in its tone, in which case perhaps standing in the middle of the stage might suit the words, my suggestion is that you take advantage of the space that you have. You will want to use your body in a way that is going to supplement the words that you are using. And that's body from top to bottom, beginning with your facial expressions. Use facial expressions that are going to match your words, because then that truly makes your message known, because it's not only from the voice, but it's also on the face. If you're just expressing displeasure, you might have a furrowed brow. If you are talking about something that has brought much joy and happiness into your life, you've got a smile on your face. They might even see a twinkle in your eye. It's all coming together for the audience because you're using your face to say, in addition to what I'm saying to you, this is how I am feeling about my words. So whatever natural facial expressions come to you in the moment, then I am encouraging you to use them. There are those who will practice a presentation to the point where they will also choreograph their movements. I am on the fence about that. I myself have done it when I've been in contests, because you're being judged, in fact, for your use of the body expression and gestures. But I also know that you don't want to orchestrate it in a way that it looks so mechanical, because then you're not keeping it natural. What you want to do is whatever you're feeling in the moment, then that's what should show on your face. That's, again, if we go back to looking at the preparation piece and knowing yourself, know how you show emotion and the appropriate expression to demonstrate that to the audience. You also want to use your hands because they are there. And when you're not using your hands, just as an aside, make sure that they are, in fact, at the side of your body, that the hands are not in the pocket, that they're not clasped together as if you're white-knuckling your way through the speech, that they are not shaking, that they're used in some way other than to convey your message. You can use your hands to demonstrate how large or tall or small something is. You can use them for exaggeration, so that if you're talking about how tall something is, you actually then bring your hand down to a lower level to demonstrate the exaggeration, You can use your hands when you're talking about left and right if your conversation happens to be about direction or one or the other. Use your hands to enhance the words that you are using. If you're talking about something that's heartfelt, put your hand on your heart and talk about the pain that you experienced when you went through that particular time of your life, or that time when your business was just absolutely at its worst and you didn't think you were going to get through to the next day. Using your face and your body and your hands all in concert is going to help it's going to help your audience understand what a trying time that might have been for you. And then you can throw your hands up in the air when you say, I finally got it. I needed to do this, or I needed to do that, or I did this and I did that. And you're using your hands to show I did this and this and this. And it emphasizes your point in that way. As for using the stage, you also want to be sure that you are addressing your full audience, that you have people on your left and you have people on your right. Not everyone is in your middle. So you can take a few steps towards the left and talk to a pocket of people there, and then talk to a pocket of people on the right, and then return to the middle. Caution, when you are moving on the stage, do it very purposefully. If you're going to the left, use that movement to introduce a new part of your presentation, rather than just simply ambling back and forth, because then that's mindless pacing. You're bringing up another topic, so then you move to the left and you connect with that audience, and then you talk about it a bit more as you move to the center, and now you've got another topic to bring up, so you move to the right and bring that part of the audience in on it, and then move back to the center and address the audience as a whole. That way people don't feel that they're being cheated out of your presence. Using the stage is going to be very important to you, so I would encourage you to be mindful of how much you are addressing your audience, not only with your words, but with your body and the natural strides that you're going to be taking as you are connecting with your audience. Another part of presentation, and this also includes the presence piece as well, that I want to cover with you, and I've alluded to already, is to connect with the audience. I don't care how nervous you are, it is imperative that you connect with your audience. Audiences, and you know because you are one, you have been, audiences are very forgiving. If you are nervous, number one, you are likely more nervous in your mind than you really are or than appears to your audience. You think you're falling apart, and they're not seeing that at all. If your nerves are showing, though, your audience is there for you. Okay, this is what you told me not to do, Shauna. Your audience is there for you. They want you to succeed. So connect with them in a way that's going to get them on your bandwagon and having you be there for them as they are for you. Some of the ways that you can connect with your audience is with telling a story. People want to know how you are like them. So however you can relate to them with a story about an experience that you've had will open up a whole other world for you to connect with them, because they're sitting there thinking, that's me, or that's someone that I know, and therefore I understand. I know that, and I'm dating myself by saying this, that Sergeant Friday of Dragnet, for those of you who remember that TV show, was all about just the facts, ma'am. Not always. Include a story. Oh, gosh. I don't know why this is happening. Okay. Include a story that's going to help your audience relate to you and connect to you. I've already talked about using the stage and using it very purposefully to connect with different parts of your audience. What you're also going to want to do is make sure that you're having eye contact. And this can be unsettling and unnerving for some folks because it feels like you're staring at them. What you're going to do that's going to work to your advantage is to speak to one person, whether it's 1 or 2 sentences, but when you're speaking to that one person, the whole audience is tuned into the connection that you have with that individual. And they're going to feel like you're looking at them just as much as you are looking at that individual. And then you bury your eye contact and look at a pocket of this audience and look at this individual when you're making a point. And then you're going to get them on board with what you have to say and the significance of your message. As far as focus, if you are nervous, remember that when you are on stage, your focus is completely on your audience. And this is where you want to be as present as possible. You are already there. You are on stage, and the purpose is to communicate your message. It's not about you and how you think you are being perceived by your audience, because those thoughts, if they are prevalent in your mind, are going to trip you up. And that's when you forget what you're going to say, or you throw in the ums because you have disconnected from your own message, because you've got another message in your head along with the message coming out of your mouth, and they're both vying for your attention. When you are on stage, your focus is on your audience, because that is who you are there to serve. When you practice and prepare, your presentation will be much easier for you if you are focusing on what you're wanting to share with your audience, what you practice that you're going to say to your audience, what you've prepared to say to your audience, and not on how you are feeling with whatever discomfort might be there. In time, if it's not happening for you currently, in time, this will take hold, because you're going to enjoy being with your audience. You're going to love being in front of them. You're going to love their reactions. You're going to want to go back for more because they are sending you the message that we appreciate what you just shared with us. So when you focus on them, your audience will feed back to you how much pleasure they are getting out of what it is that you are providing them. So those are the pieces that I wanted to share with you in terms of presentation, preparation, presentation, and presence. A quick note about this picture. You'll see me there in the orange top to the right. These are all high school classmates all these years later. When I was in high school with them, these are the people that I sometimes felt inferior to because they were the leaders. They were the ones who would speak up in class. They were the popular ones. And now, because I've overcome my shyness and appreciate the value of public speaking, I can focus on what they are needing when we are together as a group, enjoying ourselves and not thinking about how it used to be for me, how I felt like I was just in the back of the picture and just didn't blend in at all. That's how you want to be when you are on stage, when you are fully in presence with your audience, is focusing on what am I here to give them? What am I here to offer? At this point, then, I am going to open it up to any questions that you might have that I can respond to.
Well, it looks like we did have a question, and it kind of goes back to know your audience. What do you recommend to do if you have a heckler in the audience, somebody that's kind of taunting you while you're presenting?
That's a difficult one, and it's also something that doesn't happen very often. In a large audience, what you can do is acknowledge, and you always want to acknowledge the heckler because this is someone who is just looking for attention. They want their 15 seconds of fame. You acknowledge their question or their comment and then move on. You will likely not have someone continue in that vein once you have acknowledged them and taken care of their need for attention, as I stated, and then just move on. rather than trying to engage in an argument or dissuade them from their point of view. Acknowledge it and then move on. If you are giving an all-day presentation, you can always at the break approach this person and say, I appreciate what you brought up for discussion. Please know that I have planned my presentation in a way that does not allow for that kind of comment or is disruptive to the group. I appreciate that you're here. I'm glad that you're learning what you're learning. But send the message home to them that after the break and into the afternoon that you are not wanting that kind of behavior to continue.
That's a great answer. The next question comes in and kind of relates into knowing your audience. The question asker asks, if you walk into a room and a presentation and you're unfamiliar with the audience, what's the best way to get to know them in 5 minutes or less so you can tailor your presentation to them?
One of the first things that you'll want to do is to, let's say you've already been introduced, so the audience knows who you are. So what you'll want to do is perhaps add a little bit more to the introduction because that gives you time to get comfortable with the audience. So maybe just give them a little bit more of a hint about what you're there to present. And again, this is you're thinking this through as you're speaking. It's somewhat impromptu. So give yourself the opportunity to settle in on the stage and say, this is what I'm going to talk about today. You might have some other pieces of information that you would like me to bring up, and ask them, what questions might you have right now? If you have a board, a whiteboard or something to document those on, you can do that at that time, or you can remind them to ask you that, or that's a great question, you know what, I'm going to be bringing that up in about 15 minutes, and that way you're involving them at the outset without having them take over, but you're also learning more about what is interesting to them, what they need to know, what they want to know. So polling your audience in the moment is one way that you can then get a better sense for how you might have to either amend your presentation, and you can do that because you are the expert and you know where you can pull information out of your kit bag and bring it out into the open, or just use what you've had prepared and amend it along the way.
Great. So this question asker starts off by prefacing that they rarely do presentation. But when they do, they get that I'm in a tunnel feeling where their heart starts pounding, but it does go away in a couple minutes. And they ask, is there any way to get over that initial shock?
Yes. A profound yes. The first is to acknowledge that it's there. Don't ignore it. Your body is naturally doing what it's wanting to do. It's preparing itself for the presentation. That's a whole stirring up of energy that you want to take advantage of. You don't want it to be knotted in the way that it might be currently, but you can use it. And that's why I did the breathing exercise at the beginning. Whether you're seated at the back of the room and you are in the audience, or you're backstage and they can't see you, it is very easy to take these very slow, deep inhalations and exhale and let that carbon dioxide out of the system and calm the body down. Put your hand on your heart and breathe into that and exhale. And visualize yourself doing well on the stage before you get on it. When you walk out with that vision in mind, with your breathing in check, then you're more likely to open in a way that is not going to be as stressful as it feels when you are waiting to be called upon. Breathing, deep breathing is your ally when it comes to public speaking. It's an ally for just about everything in life because breathing is natural, but especially for public speaking. Take those deep breaths and get that gunk out so that when you are on the stage, you're more relaxed, your voice is natural, your mannerisms are more comfortable because you've taken the chance to prepare in that way.
Great. And this next question this is in reference to a sales and operations setting. But they ask, in a smaller group setting, how do you recommend diffusing an individual, so kind of like that heckler, who feels that they have not been given what they expected?
First is to get clear on what they're wanting. Have them clarify what they're wanting, because if someone is just saying, well, I don't understand this, or you didn't mention this, or this is not what I came for, ask them to clearly state to you what it is that they're wanting. Because in the heat of the moment, especially if they're feeling a little bothered by not getting what they came for, they may not be saying it clearly enough so that you can then respond to that. As with the heckler, again, acknowledge what is going on for them. So it sounds like, or what I'm getting from you is that I've missed a few of the points that you were hoping I would cover. Help me to understand more clearly what it is you're wanting to know, and then I can put my response together for you and address that in a way that will likely be very satisfying for you. Whenever you have someone who's feeling like they got the short end of the stick, acknowledge that emotion, and that helps to diffuse the way that they are feeling, because now they know that they're being acknowledged and recognized, and that they're going to get what they're wanting.
Great. That was great questions, everybody. It looks like that was the last question.
Okay. Well, I thank you all for being here, and I know that this was a big chunk of time out of your day. I do appreciate all of you being here. I do want to let you know that I do have a special offer for those of you who are wanting to follow up in whatever way is going to be helpful to you. I am offering a 30-minute coaching session, whether it's for something that you have coming up, a presentation that you have coming up, or some other opportunity to speak publicly. I've given you a reduced rate of $45 for a 30-minute coaching session, which would be good through next week, Wednesday. And this will be an opportunity for you to run through what it is that you might want to say and get some feedback on how you might present it in a way that is more reflective of how you want your audience to hear it. So this is a special offer that I am making available to you. I also want to point out that when we're talking about public speaking, there's a whole gamut from a conversation with somebody in a networking situation all the way through to being a keynote at a big conference. So whatever your needs are, I can help you address them. I do want to remind you again that my name is Patricia Klinger. I am the owner of Say It and Show It, and my contact information is there on the screen. You can give me a call if you'd like to take advantage of the offer. You can send me an email there to patricia@sayandshow.com, and you can certainly spend some time visiting my website to learn more about me and what I do. Final message to you. This was taken, again, on the Big Island while we were all sitting out there for our reunion dinner, and this magnificent sunset began to happen, which helps me to convey the tagline for my business, and that is, when you speak up in public, you will also show up in life. The more that you self-express, the more that people are going to understand who you are and how special you are to the environment in which you have placed yourself, whether it's your business environment, the family, the friends, wherever it might be, your church, in the community. So I wish you all much luck with your public speaking endeavors, and it was my pleasure to be here for all of you this morning. Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for presenting. That was a wonderful presentation. I do want to remind everybody, if you'd like to go back and review this presentation, we have live recorded it, so it will be available on our YouTube channel at BBB News for You. Please feel free to reach out to either Patricia or myself with any additional questions that you have. We would be absolutely willing to answer any questions you guys might have that we didn't get to during the presentation. All right, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day.